So, one of the most important things that I ever learned uh, happened when I coached, gosh, almost 15 years ago, JV boys basketball. Now, what did I learn from teaching? Sorry, I should say, coaching JV boys basketball. Well, one of the things I learned is that coaching basketball is really complex and really difficult. And when you start to coach, you work on the basics and the fundamentals, and you're trying to teach your kids how to dribble and shoot and pass and move and all those kinds of things. And it's way more difficult than you think because everyone tends to be a little passive when they're first learning basketball. And playing basketball in a gym with a referee and a whistle and a clock and all that sort of stuff is way different from pickup basketball. Right? So it's really difficult to kind of convey this to the players. But what I learned as a coach of JV basketball is that you must train yourself to look away from the ball. In order for you to understand the game of basketball, you must learn to look at movement and space where the ball isn't. And I found this to be a tremendous asset when I was actually trying to coach, like in game and these sorts of things. And if I could teach at least those guys, well, no, if I could teach all the guys to somehow not watch the basketball, right? Because we're all taught to watch the basketball. And I suspect that part of the reason why we're taught to watch the basketball is that we are accustomed to watching basketball on TV. And when in TV, of course, the ball is the focal point. And so a good cameraman sort of follows the ball as it goes around and as the shots go up and all those kinds of things, which makes for decent TV, but it makes for a really bad formation in thinking through basketball, right? And the reason why you as a coach have to learn how to look away from the ball is that all of the space and all of the motion has to happen away from the ball. And if I wanted to understand what my team was or was not doing, I had to pay attention to that. Defense, you can't play defense, either man to man defense or zone or the less zone, but really man to man defense without training yourself to kind of watch the ball with one eye and watch your opponent on the other. And you have to kind of do this constant back and forth motion. But really, you have to watch your guy. And if you're playing against a guy who's good at getting open, then if you start watching the ball, you're going to be dead. You really have to sort of watch your guy, right? But what I found in learning to look away from the ball is almost a kind of superpower. And sadly, my coaching career was not to be. It was short lived. But I've always understood that that becomes a sort of fundamental way by which you train yourself to see not just basketball, not even just other sports, but the world, politics, cultural things, right? So much of what we deal with is a war on our attention, right? That our eyes, our gaze is constantly being taken and like a hypnotist who sort of swings the, the clock, the watch in front of the person being hypnotized. We are we are taught to follow that object, and it is actually mesmerizing. By the way, that word mesmerizing has a really interesting history. I wish I had looked it up beforehand, but I remember reading it's like this guy Mesmer, and he had these powers of hypnotism. But the idea of being mesmerized is sort of having like a I don't know like to be spellbound, right? Some sort of spell is cast upon you, and you're sort of like out of sorts, and you've lost control. So if we think of this war for our attention in terms of how can we learn to see a bigger picture, a broader picture? How can we learn how to see better? Well, we have to train ourselves to watch off the ball, right? Because oftentimes, watching the ball, almost all of the time, I should say, watching the ball is tantamount to understanding maybe a third, maybe a quarter of all the things that are going on. And so I think about this in terms of stories. I think about this in terms of the news, especially. If these three things are the headline grabbers, like it's this and it's this and this, and these are the talking points, and this is what people are talking about on X, and this is what you see all over the place, and this is on the internet and YouTube, blah blah blah, right? My first question is, okay, this is interesting, but what am I not seeing? What am I not paying attention to? Is this is what they want me to look at? I mean, because that's what headline news is, right? That's what a post is they want you to look at something. But what if they want you to look at something because there are all kinds of things that are going on over there or over there that also bear attention but are not getting the focals. They're not getting the focus. And so that idea of um, the attention games, the war on the attention, is something that you need to be cognizant of and to pay attention to. And I wonder, so like today, if you look at the things, Trump is doing this, and I don't know, Putin is doing this, and Zelensky is doing this, and Vance is saying this, and blah blah blah, all the different things. Well, if this is what they want me to look at, what don't they want me to look at? And I know I'm going to get some comments in the section. You're like, oh, you're talking about a they, you're a conspiracy theorist. Well, there are certain people. There are certainly people and institutions that benefit from us not noticing what's going on, us not noticing, not paying attention. I mean, one of the things that I find interesting as we see sort of all this corruption about funding and the whatnot is that why are we just finding this out now? Like, why didn't we know where all this money goes? Like, like in my house, not that I get audited, I guess I'm in charge of my house, but one of the things that we do, my wife and I, is, where's the money going? We've got this money coming in, and the money's going out there and there and there, and we make certain assessments, on a day, on a monthly basis. I say sometimes on a weekly basis of like, well, this is how much we have, and this is what we need to do. So we need to prioritize those things. But if you're sort of busy, if your attention is caught up with these other things, then you're missing the open spaces, and you're missing the back channels, and you're missing the passes to the weak side or the backside. And in basketball, that's absolutely crucial if you have any desire to be an effective basketball coach. Side note on the basketball thing is that I was not a good coach. Basketball coaching in particular is really intense. I know why people get the bug. I know why basketball coaches can become pretty manic and pretty crazy, because it's an infinitely situational coaching experience. So that every time the whistle is blown, every time there's a stoppage, every time there's a quarter or break, these kind of things, you are called to make some kind of coaching decision. Whereas when I coached soccer, it's a little bit more of a flow sport. You could sort of bark orders from the sidelines, but really the coaching was in sort of getting kids accustomed to moving into space and all those kinds of things. Be aggressive, go to the ball, etc. But in basketball, every time they blow the whistle, you're supposed to do something. So I was smart enough to learn that I was a bad basketball coach. I'm sure in time I could have got myself coached up to speed, but I will never forget that simple basic lesson. That if I'm not watching away from the ball, I don't know what's going on. And as a person who kind of watches the scene, as a person who tries to make sense about what's going on, I am kind of obsessed with making sure I understand what's going on. And don't get too confounded by the headlines. Look beyond, or look to the side of those things. What's going on here or there? Because the chances are that something real is happening that nobody's paying attention to. And my sense is that this lesson is applicable to a variety of different things. So, in the end, learn how to look off the ball. Whole world will open up for you, and be sure to try to win the war of attention. Speaking of attention, I appreciate your time and attention. I do my best not to bore you. I do my best not to waste your time. So if you wouldn't mind hitting the like and subscribe button, I think I would appreciate it. You can leave some comments down here below. I love interacting with you all. And as always, see you next time.